Welcome to In Nomine, your source for tabletop role-playing games for the adventurous, and the sister channel to Evil Live. Subscribe if you're new to this channel, because today we are reviewing In Nomine, Angelic Players, a guide. That's right, and you've never seen my room as messy, my little office space here, which is one of my kids' rooms, as messy as it is right now. All right, well, welcome. This was interesting. So my initial thoughts of this book are I really don't like angels. And there's very few valuable information in here that you can't get from the core rule book. But there is valuable information here. So that's my initial thoughts. So this was written by James L. Cambayas, Sam Chupp, David Edelstein, Matthew D. Grau, Steve Kenson, Mike Nystul, Derek Pearcy, and S. John Ross. These are all contributors to all the various In Nomine role-playing game products. So it was edited by Nettie Harstock, and cover art is by Rowena, published by Stephen Jackson Games, November 1st, 1997. This is all about angels. That's the whole point. So if you're going to be playing an angel in the In Nomine role-playing game, then you're definitely going to want to pick this up, because it gives you extra options. And it also explains the minds of angels. And it's really important in In Nomine to, I don't know why I don't need these glasses anymore. It's really important in In Nomine to understand, to get into the role of your character, to understand the nature of an angel. I mean, the reality is if you're playing another role-playing game, whether you're playing like a werewolf or a vampire, or, you know, a warrior or a spellcaster or something, depending on the system, it's pretty easy just to kind of get into the role of the character's mind, because they're all mortals of some kind. You know what I mean? I mean, they're all like people, and they have people motivations. But angels are not people. They're celestial divine beings. They're created out of nothing before humanity was ever anything. And so it's really important to be able to get into the mind of a divine creature. And that's really the strength of this player's handbook, is that it presents angels as what they truly are, these sort of abstract instruments in the symphony for God, you know, in this role-playing game. And I found it has a really wonderful creation myth, which was also present in the Game Master's Guide, which I've already reviewed. Check that out. It's a good review, and is a really great supplement. So it has a creation story, which is somewhat present in the core rulebook, but not really detailed at all, which really gives you a lot of information about how the universe began, how angels came to be, and how angels reflect on the rest of the animal kingdom and humans throughout history, and even religion, which some angels have come to promote and stuff like that. But it doesn't just talk about the beginning of angels. It also talks about, well, what if angels fall? What does it take for a celestial being to fall from grace? And what does it mean? And how do demons react to them? And how do other angels react to them? So it's really, really interesting. That's not until the very end of the manual, but it gives you really great role-playing insight on what it truly means to push the boundaries on being an angel, because there's a bunch of there's like 7 different choirs of angels, but not all of them are the same, you know, and even individual angels within each choir differ slightly. And so, yes, they have a resonance in the symphony, that is their very nature as a celestial being. They all slightly, you know, differ in variation on theme. And it's important to understand that, so that you don't just have copycat versions of each character. If you got 2 Mercurians, they're going to be different characters. They're going to have different personalities, slightly different, but their natures are going to be the same. And there's just how they express those natures, which I find interesting, are going to be different. So that's really the strength of this book, in my opinion. Now, it does go into each of the different choirs, and in the core rulebook, when it presents each of the individual choirs initially, it gives you their resonance, which is both the nature of the angel, but also the sort of supernatural power that the angel uses because of their nature, how they resonate in the symphony, as it were. And so this power is presented as, in one particular way, depending on the choir, right? So every single individual choir has a different power. This presents alternative methods of use for these powers, sort of like greater and lesser applications of their resonance or power. And I found that very interesting because not only does it expand the sort of toolkit for individual players that are playing these angels, but it also gives you the sort of highs and lows of each of these resonances, each of these powers. And that's really important because it gives you, it just inspires you as a player rather than thinking, oh, well, I only have this ability. No, you can use this ability in many different ways. Here are some examples. And that inspires creativity in the player, imagination in the player, so that when they actually do get to the game table, they're able to really flex their angelic muscles, as it were, and really go out of the box from what they were originally presented just out of the core rules. And ingenuity, creativity, imagination is at the core of role-playing, and being confined by a resonance in this particular game on the surface seems pretty limiting. But as soon as you start seeing these alternate methods of use of these different powers, then you start to realize, oh, well, it's not as limiting as I thought it was. You can actually stretch your legs a little bit. So it gives you good role-playing information. It gives you the creation background, and it gives you information about all the choirs, which is a little bit more expanded and more developed than was presented in the core rulebook, as to be expected. It also gives you extra discords that are choir-specific discords, or discords with choir-specific changes or alterations. And this is interesting because if you do pick up notes of dissonance, rather than ultimately, if you have too many notes of dissonance, which you generate by acting against your own resonance, your own nature as an angel, or against the resonance or nature of your superior, you'll get those notes of dissonance as sort of like punishments. You can actually fall if you have too many. And so in order to prevent that, some angels pick up what's called a discord, which is a sort of a physical, emotional, or spiritual manifestation of being out against your nature, acting against your nature. So some of them trade in their dissonance for a discord, and this gives you choir-specific variations on some discords, or just some brand new discords for that. It's all just to prevent you from having to fall, and it's a great role-playing element, again, for those random players who just don't want to follow their choir's resonance to the line, but they, don't mind stepping over the bounds a little bit and being a little bit naughty, as it were. Let's see. It also gives you superiors relations. It presents a servitor's relationships with their different superiors and how that can change and be affected depending not just on the choirs of each, but also just the variations on theme of how a player is going to play their individual angel and how that is going to be affected. And I found that kind of interesting. Is okay. Again, this is part of the book, which I felt was a bit of a slog. It took me a couple more days to get through this than it should have, simply because I just didn't want to read it very much. It was not, I'm more of an infernal guy, a more demon kind of guy. And so angels, they kind of bore me. They're just not very interesting. When you look at the reality of angels, biblically speaking, they're actually evil beings. They tear babies out of mothers' wombs. They turn whole cities into salt. I mean, they bring down hellfire. I mean, they're horrible, horrible creatures. And that's really how they should be perceived in this game as well. It's just that there's this front of goodness that I don't particularly resonate with. And so it was just a little hard for me to get to as well. I did like the variations of the angels presented, though. And it also goes into detail about what it means to be a servitor. I think when people play this game, they often just want to be independent. Like, I'm an angel and I'm going to go do my deal. Well, the thing is, in this game, is everyone has a boss. Archangel's boss is God. Demon Prince's boss is Lucifer. And every one of the angels and demons serves an archangel or a demon prince. And if they don't serve one of them, then they're an outcast or they're a renegade, in which case they're hunted and killed in most cases. So it's really important for players to really understand that you have to follow the dictates of your superior. If you do not, you're not only going to get dissonance, which we spoke of earlier, they can inflict discord on you without even giving you dissonance. They can strip you of your divinity, throw you down to earth, and remove your heart so that you can never ascend to heaven or hell again. So it's really important to follow the rules or else. Hey, Chris, how you doing, man? You had a fun time playing the In Nomine game? Yeah, yours was very close. You played an Outcast, which I should have thrown in a bunch of angels hunting you down and trying to kill you. But because this is the first game that everyone was playing, I didn't want to go in the full details of what it means to be an Outcast. And you would have been not only tempted by demons a lot more, you would have been actively hunted and attempted to be murdered by not only your own choir, like seriously, but also the Divine Inquisition would have sent people after you to kill you. So yeah, being an Outcast is no fun. It's more restrictive and confining as a player. See, and I don't think it does. Yeah, well, in that particular case with Cam's character, I don't think it does. It's just you have to have a different mindset, because you can stretch your legs creatively as an angel. You just have to understand that you're there to do a job. And sometimes that job means killing people. Sometimes it means protecting people. It depends on the job. And that's all defined by your superior. In your character's case, you didn't have a superior. And so you were sort of floating in the breeze as a character, you know? You didn't have that direction. It would have been fun to play, except incredibly convoluted for the story I was telling. So, and you would have been constantly, attacked and murdered. I mean, like, that's not fun for anyone. Okay, so the part that I really liked about this is the next part that it goes into, and it's falling. What it means to become an outcast, and then the temptation of hell to pull you over to be a demon and stuff, and all the different versions of luring an outcast to hell. I thought was really, really kind of fun. The different ways that characters can interpret it and stuff like that. So stuff like that I really did appreciate. It's just the center of this book was a bit of a slog for me. It really was. At the very end of it, it has a really great quick character creation chart, which if you've already created a character before and you don't want to flip all through the books to find all the different options, you can just look at this one multi-page chart and just knock out a character really quickly. I appreciate that a lot because it takes you a little over an hour to create a character. And that's a lot of time to invest flipping through pages of a book. And it can take longer than that if you're very unfamiliar with the game. So this little quick chart will help you get through the process a little bit quicker. You're still going to have to look stuff up, so don't expect it to eliminate all of the page flipping, but it does help a lot. And the Infernal Player's Guide, which I'm going to be reviewing next, also has that. And so that's a very nice little tool for players to use for future characters and stuff. And that's kind of it. So my favorite part of this was I love creation myths. And so I loved how they presented angels in Nomine and the creation of the universe and everything. I really liked the enhanced uses of their resonance and the extra discords and like choir specific customized discords that they presented. And I really love the section on falling and the temptation and stuff. And it makes me want to run a one-off or a two-shot with your character specifically, Chris, because of all the information it added in there about hunting outcasts and demons, tempting them and stuff like that. With your particular backstory, your character's particular backstory, I think it would be very, very interesting to do, just like a one-on-one or maybe you and another player dealing with that. And seeing where it goes. I think that would be really interesting and kind of fun to run through. So, put a pin in that sometime in the future. Maybe we can get together and see what that's like. My least favorite part is the retreading of each choir and talking about variations of angels and stuff. It was so uninteresting to me that it almost made me stop reading the whole book altogether. I'm just saying, screw it. And that's not usually something I do. It really has to be boring for me to fight through. It's sort of like there were elements in the Ethereal Player's Guide that were very similar to that for me, where it was just a slog to get through and it took me longer than it should have because I was not interested and I was not invested. When I get to the Infernal Player's Guide, I don't think it's going to be the same thing because I really like the bad guys. I always cheer for the bad guys. That's sort of my, how I, again, it's sort of what I do. So I don't know. It may be just as boring, but I don't know. We'll find out when I get there. But ultimately, because of that, there's some good. There's a little bit of bad, but a little bit of a slog, but ultimately a lot of valuable information to help players get into the mindset of angels and gives them tools and tricks on how to better play angels and understand what it means to be a divine being, something that we can't relate to as human beings. And so you need extra role-playing help in order to really get in that mindset. And I really appreciated that. And there was also a really great moment where it explained how insane angels are and out of touch. They're not humans. As much as we can't relate to celestial beings have a really hard time trying to relate to us, evolved animals. Our society, the way we engage with each other, social norms, that's completely alien to these divinities, divine beings. And so you have to understand that aspect of angels as much as everything else in order to really play an effective angelic character. And it presents it in this. So I did give it 4 out of 5 evil eyes. It's valuable. It's just if you're not into angels, it's going to be a bit of a slog. All right. That's all I had for you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, like it or not, evil spelled backwards is live. So get out there. Did this supplement have additional songs or abilities? No, just enhanced abilities for your resonances and extra discords. It does have extra weapons and stuff like that, which was kind of interesting and weird that they would throw that in there. But no extra songs and stuff like that. There's a whole other book of songs which goes into tons of detail about that. And then there's a book of relics, which give you all the different types of relics, talismans, artifacts, and stuff like that to expand the game and everything. But for these, it was really hyper-focused on what it means to be an angel, as it should, I think, specifically. All right. Once again, thank you for tuning in. Evil spelled backwards is live, so get out there and be evil, everyone. Even if you're going to play an angelic character.